Hey there, everyone. It's Louisa Tannermunson from Feel Good Astrology. And I took my time in saying Feel Good Astrology there because this is the month for feeling good. This is the month that I see as being a real sort of turnaround in terms of how we're feeling about ourselves, how we're feeling about our position in the world. And there's a lot going on. It's softer and smoother than July, which was really quite life-changing. Like the shifts that have started in July, for instance, we've had the North Node go into the sign of Aries, and then we've got this Venus retrograde, both of which come around every 18 months or so. So it has really sort of changed the pace. And then as we're going into August, with still this Venus retrograde going on and the North Node getting into its power in this new sign of Aries, we have 2 full moons and a new moon. We've got Mercury going retrograde, we've got Mars changing signs, and quite an interesting set of astrology. So let's dive in now. How I'm going to approach it is I'm going to look at it on a week-by-week basis. I've got 7 charts to share with you. And then at the end, I'm going to give an update as to how this energy is going to be affecting each star sign one after the other. And, in this, if you want, you can look at your rising sign. So, for instance, my rising sign is the sign of Scorpio. I would actually listen to the Scorpio edition. So if you know your rising sign or your ascendant, check out that one first. If not, then use your sun sign. Okay. Anyway, let's get going. So let's bring up this first chart right now. And, just as I'm bringing it up, I want to just ask, how are you feeling? How does it seem right now? How does all the energy seem to be appearing to you right now? Are you relaxed in what's been going on in these recent times? Because it has been really quite crazy. Now, let's see if I can make this bigger. I don't think I can. Let's see. So the first chart I want to share with you is this full moon, which starts on the first day of August. Now, we've got it as 7:31 p.m. That's from London and Lisbon, which is where I'm kind of recording from in Portugal. So that's on that time zone. Obviously, if you're in the US, it's happening much sooner in the day of the 1st of August. And obviously, if you're listening in from Australia, it's probably happened the day before. Sorry, the following day. Anyway, so this is the energy of the full moon. And the great thing with the full moons is you actually feel the energy coming in. I always think of the full moon as being a 3-day event, not just a moment in time, so it's coming into its fullness and then it's ta-da, there it is. And then it's easing off. So, especially psychics and empaths and very, very sensitive people, and possibly people who get very overwhelmed by oversensory data. So people, maybe with ADHD or, people who really see themselves as being on the spectrum. I imagine that people like that really relate to the full moons a lot more than so-called neurotypical people. There is this sensitivity factor. It's a bit like how you notice birds and animals reacting to the full moon, or children, for instance. I really think that people that really get the full dose of the full moon energy are people who maybe don't have the same level of tools of self-management. And, obviously lots of adults, we've learned to cope with life and learned how to manage our emotions in a way that, children really haven't. Animals don't even know that they need to. So yeah, it's quite a big time, the full moons. Anyway, this full moon in particular, what I like about it, so it's hang on. As with all full moons, what's going on is we have the sun in opposition to the moon. That's how it shows up. And at the time of the full moon, the sun is at 9 degrees in the sign of Leo, and that makes the moon at 9 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. Anyone that is of a fixed sign, and by fixed sign, I mean Leo, so Leo here, Scorpio there, also Aquarius, and also Taurus down here. you're the ones that are feeling it more. Now, that goes for if you've got the sun or the moon in fixed signs, but also think of your angles. Like if your ascendant and descendant are in fixed signs, and your IC and MC, these angles on your chart, which are like the compass points of life, as that's how I think of them. If you've got these points, these really sensitive areas in fixed signs, it's more likely to trigger something in you. And especially if your birthday is around like the 1st of August, the 1st of November, the 1st of February, and also around the 1st of May, which sort of corresponds with this 9 degrees kind of energy. So anyway, the full moon, essentially we've got the tension and the gap between what our personality is crying out for and saying, well, this is what we should be doing, and what our psyche is doing. You could say it's what the masculine versus the feminine is doing. Suffice to say, it feels like there's a split, like it's like you're in two minds at the same time, and one of them is more rational, and that's the sun-based sign, and one of them is more instinctive, more behavioral, more emotions-led, possibly more spiritual. Interestingly, out of these two signs, Leo is the one that's actually more instinctive and more personable, and the sign of Aquarius is the one that seems a little bit more rational and a little bit more ego-led, but not ego-led, but a little bit more objective. So like the sign of Leo is more subjective, and the sign of Aquarius tends to be more objective. Now, this is interesting, like this dichotomy of, which way am I going to go? The way I've said it is, it's like saying, love me. And at the same time, but there's nothing special about me. I'm just one in a billion, and I'm just very normal and very, so, like the moon in Aquarius is just really seeing that you are one of many, and we may be possibly just a number. And yes, we might be special, but everybody's special. So there is this feeling at the moment of maybe not celebrating our special uniqueness, because we are all just foot soldiers. We are all just people. We are all just from humanity. We're all equal and special, but we're all specially equal, maybe. I don't know how to put it. But then the sun in Leo is very much about celebrating our uniqueness and who we really are. So it's an interesting separation. And I would say it's one of the key and core narratives that's been going on for quite some time, isn't it? Whereby it feels like some people and their ways of being and the ways that they have to identify themselves, they're being revered for their specialness and their uniqueness. And at the same time, there's also this kind of push to say, but anyway, that doesn't matter, because actually we're all very, very equal. So I do see that we're actually already caught in that story. And so if you've already got skin in that game, this full moon is likely to trigger you somewhat. Now, something else I notice about this full moon is that it's not really making many aspects to anything else. So for instance, I always find these little grids very helpful. And if you're new to astrology, you'll find this quite useful as well. First of all, there's always a breakdown: fire, earth, air, water, cardinal, fixed, mutable. So it's describing the sort of quality of how each planet is showing up. And for instance, at the time of the full moon, the moon is kind of showing up with an air-based quality that's also fixed. And if you want to learn about that, there are lots of other things that I can suggest. Plus I've got a free course that you can do about the basics of astrology. If you go to www.skool.com, that's SKOOL.com/feelgoodastrology, you've got access to my free sort of like learn everything you need to know for absolute beginners course. But anyway, aside from that, this grid is pretty useful because it shows what the sun and moon are up to. And if you see here, the sun is not connecting to many things at the time of the full moon. And similarly, the moon is really not connecting to too many things. But what has got a story at the time of the full moon? Well, this is where our kind of man of the match, like the player of the match, if there was a football team going on, which planets or players have got most of the action? And that would be Venus, that's got like over 11 different connections with things, Mars, look how connected Mars is, and the other man of the match, big player, is Uranus. Now this is kind of interesting because all three of those actually are very, well, Venus and Mars in particular. Venus is all about the feminine principle and love and connection. Mars is about the pushing, the thrusting and the masculine kind of energy. So you've got very much two poles within each and every one of us working pretty strongly and actively at the time of the full moon. But we've also got Uranus, and Uranus is like consciousness. That's how I think of Uranus. It is the consciousness of change, the consciousness of surprise, the consciousness of let's do something a bit different, a little bit original, a little bit innovative. And with them all connecting, now Uranus, granted, is connected in a square to Venus. It's hard to see because Venus has been shunted this way, but Uranus is in a square to Venus and is actually in a trine to Mars. So like the energy of surprise at this time of the full moon is actually mobilizing us into action. And also the kind of surprising quality of the full moon is also jangling our connections a little bit. So we're feeling a little bit on edge, suffice to say. Something else at the time of the full moon that catches my eye is a sense of loneliness. Saturn over here is in opposition to Venus, to Mercury, and to Mars, and also Pallas Athena. But Venus, Mercury, and Mars are three very personal planets, very much describing parts of ourselves. So our feminine side, Mercury is how we communicate, how we barter, how we exchange, how we contract with people. Like we're always in some form of contractual obligation or a contractual gift. I don't know. We're always interacting with people. And so Mercury really shows that. And then Mars is, how we're thrusting. And it's as if all of those gifts that we have are somehow not felt, or we're not feeling the results of those. So this can be quite an isolating time. So what I would say is, if you are particularly affected at these times, I would really consider that during the first week, in particular around the time of the full moon, is to absolutely take some time to, first of all, notice just how special you are. You rock, just in case you don't know. Really consider how special you are and what it is that you want to gift humanity with, what you think your greatest gift, your greatest offering, what your soul is absolutely bursting with pride to reveal about itself. And also to love that side of you that is wanting to take your crown off and share the glory with everyone. Love that side of you as well. I think that's really important. I'm not saying you have to denigrate your skills. I do think there's a bit of a narrative going on at the moment that would have us almost take off all of our achievements, take off the coats of our well-worn experience and just kind of forget everything that we've done. There does feel, to me, as I'm perceiving the energetic fields of this kind of field of potential, it feels like there is this flattening effect, which would have almost like a bulldozer kind of energy that wants to just run us all over and completely flatten us, so that we can't really show all of our beautiful, by design, originality, our spice for life, our, all the things that, like our juiciness. So I absolutely think we should recognize where we are juicy, recognize where we're colorful, recognize where we are absolutely heart-led, and celebrate that. The moon in Aquarius, I don't think, is a very happy bunny. It's very happy to talk about things quite conceptually, but it's not necessarily fully working with its emotions. It's slightly cut off, which really reminds me of Saturn here, slightly cut off. As we go through this month, right at the end of the month, we'll see with the full moon, the second full moon, is that the moon has moved around from this position and is in a conjunction with Saturn right at the end. So I'm keeping an eye on these two throughout the whole month. Anyway, let's move on to the next chart, which is really bringing, actually, before I do that, Let me just, a couple of other things I want to just point out about week 1, because it's not just about the full moon, is it? We do have the exact opposition of Saturn here and Mercury. That is actually taking place during this first week, in particular around the 2nd of August. Now, with Mercury and Saturn in opposition, often what happens is we feel disempowered to talk. You know, it feels like we are limited in what we can say. Maybe our communication devices go down, or we're not really linking up. I think it's really important to consider at that time, and very much in week 1, what is it we're really striving to communicate at the moment? Because if our communications were limited, if you only had 3 sentences to say for the rest of your life, what the hell would you be saying? What would your key message be saying? Because I actually think, like, we've got Mercury retrograde later on in week 4. Mercury goes retrograde for its, usual 3-week period or whatever it is. And during that time, I think if we've already practiced what our core message is, if we had a unique selling point or a tagline or something, what is absolutely most vital for us to say? I think if we get in the practice of really clarifying what our key goals are and what our key communication is, we're going to be taken more seriously, which actually really plays into this Saturn in opposition to Mercury energy. But we'll also realize all the rubbish that goes on in our heads on a day-to-day basis. And we can start using a bit more discernment about how we interact and use our mind. The last thing I would say about this week is that the ongoing theme of Pluto in a square to the North Node and the South Node, which isn't shown here, but it is there. This ongoing square is really helping us get in context how our journey has gone. So there is also this feeling of the ongoing journey, what we're leaving in the past and what we're stepping into. And yet it's a bit scary, and yet we're all doing it. We're all doing it at the same time. We're all making, these big leaps right now. Everyone I'm working with at the moment, funnily enough, is absolutely leaping forward in some way, and everyone I'm speaking to. So I do think it's a current theme. This is a theme where we're stepping up, we're showing up, and we're moving the collective energy into a new vibration. So yay, Team Humanity. You got it. Let's keep going. So anyway, team 2, week 2 then. There's not so much going on. We do have a big moment around the 13th of August, and that is when Venus comes actually into a conjunction with the Sun. That's marking the end of Venus in the evening Venus position, and she switches into her morning Venus, her morning star, so evening star to morning star position. And it's going to put us in a much more practical frame of mind, which is really great. But that's happening right at the end of week 2. So what are the themes of week 2 per se? What I would really point out is that we've got just a few key aspects. The first one that I see really going on, which is coming in really strong on the 9th of August, and that is Venus in a square to Uranus. Okay, in fact, she goes exact. So Venus is currently going backwards, she's going retrograde, or that's how she appears to be going. And she's going into this square with Uranus, which is very exciting in terms of rewriting our ideas on love, realizing that actually we might have played it a bit too safe, understanding where we have not really had a soulful love, understanding where we've been trying to control the flow rather than letting the flow inspire us. I think Venus retrograde is very much about getting back into flow. And so, because she's there to show us where we're abundant, where we're healthy, where we have a sense of well-being, where we're connected to the people we love, where we're also connected to people we don't love, but might love one day. She's there to show us that life is good. Really, life is good. And so at this moment on the 9th, as she goes into a square with Uranus, it's like we're shocked. It's like we've got the paddles out on the heart, and some heart doctor is kind of shaking us awake. We're getting this jolt that actually, maybe we've been playing it too safe. Maybe we've been trying to control our love, trying to control our abundance, our awareness and everything. And it's time to just go with the energies at the time. The very next day, we've got Mercury in a lovely trine with Jupiter. So that's another theme. I mean, although it's going exact, if you think about it, these planets are always moving slowly into that position and out. So all of these effects I'm highlighting on one particular day are really there for the whole week. It's just very strong on that particular day. But with Mercury in a trine with Jupiter, after considering what we might say, we're actually, we're starting to say it. We're actually starting to share our thoughts. So it's like, what's my core message? You know what? I'm going to tell a few people about the things that are really important for me. And it's great. It's like our voice is carrying. On the 11th, we've got the moon going into the sign of Cancer, which often has us a little bit more quiet, a little bit more considerate of other people's things. And then we've got the sun in a lovely trine with Chiron. And so it feels like there's this healing energy going on towards the end of week 2. So the sun in a trine with Chiron is a lovely, lovely energy. It has us very much in mind of, do you know what? I can heal those things that I've always thought were a bit impossible. It's that time when the possibility of healing comes up, the possibility that we can become a guru of ourselves, the possibility that we can actually be of value somehow, and that we've got something to share and something to heal from. It's really big. And actually, the more we engage in that energy, the more we take on and take responsibility for the things that aren't working for us, the more we become an expert in energy. And so I just see it as we're rising ourselves up, we're raising ourselves up, and at the same time, we're doing it for everyone else. On the 13th, when Venus is in this beautiful conjunction with the sun, it's like our practical side of flow, our practical connection to life and stuff comes back online. And then the very last aspect of week 2 is that Venus is then in this healing connection with Chiron. So if we just think of the last 2 days of week 2, is like we're coming back to life. There is this beautiful, it's like power to the earth. It's like we are plugging ourselves back into the Schumann resonance. We're plugging ourselves back into the earth. And I really love that. Also, what is going on, well, I mean, this is sowing the seeds, because actually, as we go into week 3, let's have a look at week 3. We've got this really lovely power to the people kind of energy. I love this. So let's make it as big as I can. Look at that lovely grand trine. Isn't that beautiful? So we've got Pluto, which has been very much a totem of the totalitarian ideas of governments and big business, and also the rules a lot of people do demand to have and live by. There are lots of people that have felt so insecure over the last few years that they've been clamoring. They've been saying, government, please, we need more legislation so we can feel safe. So Pluto is definitely there kind of saying, yeah, I'm going to take over the world and you'll be so pleased for it. But it's also in a trine with consciousness. It's also in a trine with Mercury and also Mars. Now, one thing that I am quite interested in terms of week 3 is, as we go into week 4, Mars is actually changing signs, and Mercury, just a couple of days before, is going retrograde. So this grounding, very grounding grand trine, which is, I think, repowering ourselves. So if we think week 2, we're kind of noticing that maybe we've been out of flow. We're allowing ourselves to notice, maybe what we've been suffering from, and actually that maybe we do have a choice. I mean, that's a big thing, is recognizing we have a choice. We always have a choice. And sometimes our choices might be very crappy. I'll be honest, our choices aren't always very good. However, we have a choice and we can be inspired. And so as week 3 comes in and we're feeling inspired, we've got this very grounding energy, which is allowing us to build new dreams, to collaborate with people. In particular, Mars and Mercury together is taking action with communication. So expect to have some powerful communication, some powerful conversations, some meetings whereby actions might come out of it. And it's in the sign of Virgo, which, you know, is a great sign for Mercury. It's a less stellar sign for Mars. However, the two of them in the sign of Virgo is very much about let's see how we can be of service, not just to ourselves, but to everybody. So I think there's some very big ideas coming out that are going to help a lot of people. And all we need to do is follow the flow. We follow the intention. We follow the intuitions that are coming up for us. We follow the signs. We follow our flow. And in doing so, we are creating little waves that are rippling out and affecting everyone. This is really beautiful. And because it's in the earth signs, I'm really thinking the Schumann resonance, but not necessarily the Schumann resonance. Let's call it the human resonance. Oh, wow. That would be a good title for this month ahead's astrology. There we go. Anyway, let me write that down. Human. I never know what I'm going to be calling my videos exactly, but while I'm recording them, something always comes up and inspires me. So anyway, yeah, we're talking about the human resonance here, aren't we? You know, it's like we each are taking part in recognizing where we have come apart from the field of human potential and where we've gone off and disconnected our soul's gifts from everybody, you know, like we've kind of gone off and protected ourselves a little bit. But actually what's really happening here is we're coming back into this song. And if we could hear the sound of everybody's vibration during this time, boy, we'd be making some beautiful music. And I'm shivering as I'm saying that. For those of you that didn't realize, I also channel a little bit when I'm doing a lot. When I actually look at a chart, really what I'm seeing is the energy of it, or what I perceive is the energy of it. So I might sound a bit crazy, and sometimes these ideas as they come through, they're a bit bonkers, but there you go. That's how I work. So this lovely Jupiter and Uranus are really starting to come into a conjunction now, and that is going to be ongoing. You know, by April of 2024, we're going to have these two in a really tight conjunction, and that's going to start shaping things very, very rapidly, in particular, I think, with finance. So it's interesting that the sign of Taurus, which is really associated with money and earnings, and we've got these two change makers coming together. We're already feeling the energy of it. And maybe some of these ideas down here that we're having are human resonance, our human fields reaching out to each other. Maybe there are some big collaborations in the offing. Who knows? Now, in week 3, we've also got the new moon. Now, let's not forget the new moon energy. Who doesn't like a new moon, eh? And the new moon is happening at exactly 10:38. Or actually, it might be a little bit, maybe a minute or two later, because I realise this moon's not quite in the same moment here, but never mind. It's happening in the morning of Wednesday, the 16th of August. That is London time and Portugal time zone. So if you're in the States, the chances are it's happening for you on the night of the 15th. But anyway, the new moon. So 23 degrees in the sign of Leo. So again, those fixed signs are being really highlighted. If you've got your sun, moon, or angles around, 20 to 25 degrees of any of the fixed signs. So that is, let me give them to you again, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. This is a beautiful time to start manifesting, to note it in your diary and think, okay, the 16th, let's see, how can I move that energy forwards? Now, the first thing that I really like about this is at the time of the new moon, Venus retrograde is in a conjunction with the new moon. Also, and I don't normally have Lilith in these charts, but sometimes I get these extra bits in my chart from where I've been, where I've forgotten to take everything out. But at the time of the new moon, Lilith is also there. Now, Lilith is an interesting character. Where Lilith shows up in our charts, it really shows where we've suppressed ourselves. It shows our angry, suppressed, upset self. That side of us that we learnt to shut down and shut off when we were a small kid. Most likely we got a bollocking about something and we're told we were being too much. And when you're being too much, you're too hard to handle. And it's like that side of us that was shamed and blamed and embarrassed out of being, this lovely little side of ourselves, which every 2-year-old has got, 3-year-old has got, and by the time they're 7, it's most likely shut right down. But this lovely little bright spark of energy that if it was only appreciated and loved beautifully by your parents at the time and your teachers and all of... Oh, my dogs are coming alive as I'm saying that. As we are looking at this new moon, this is a chance for us to really connect to that primeval desire to be absolutely loved and adored and to shine your light in your own little weird and freaky way. Absolutely celebrate your inner 2-year-old, your inner 3-year-old, and awaken that part of you that you've let sleep. And I say you've let sleep because we do always have the choice. It's not an easy choice, and most of us do switch our too muchness off at an early age. We learn to live without the thing that is probably our most passionate part of our being. We shut ourselves down. But this new moon is a great opener. Venus retrograde is showing us where we've been cut off and is helping us to reconnect, just as Lilith is there saying, hey, I think you've forgotten about me. So connect in with your younger self. Look at old photos. Maybe notice, when I look at old photos of myself, I remember when I met my husband, showing him photos of me throughout my life, as you do, as you get to know people. And as I was looking, I was thinking, wow, I look really happy there. And then all of a sudden there's this moment. And then all the photos thereafter, the kid is, or me, it's like, not shining. It's like self-consciousness. So yeah, the key here might be, when did you become critical of yourself? When did you get self-conscious? All kids, even the most supported kids, have these moments where they become self-conscious and then start editing their personalities. So this new moon energy on the 16th is saying, like, go back to your original files, go back to your original design, your original program, and like ditch this program you've got right now. Let's reconnect to the original one, but with all the wisdom and the love and the compassion that you can muster to allow that to grow within you. So yeah, it's quite a strong new moon energy. And again, it's really tapping into this lovely, beautiful Chiron. It's really tapping into this beautiful North Node. Isn't that beautiful? So it feels like we are coming back onto our path, in particular with this North Node trine. We're coming back into our health. And by health, I'm not necessarily talking physical health, but our spiritual health, our feeling of well-being. We are rewriting our love. We're coming back online. And here's the thing I really like, because there's always, you need a little bit of grit, don't you, sometimes, to give you the polarity to notice what it is that you want. Well, we've got this terrific square energy coming up between the sun, the moon, and Venus, and also Lilith, to Uranus and Jupiter. Now, in this position, if we take these symbols here of the sun and the moon and Venus and Lilith to be our personality, our core personality, it's very much a first house thing. It's our identity. Uranus and Jupiter here are kind of in the career, the where are you going, the direction, the destiny area, and also that place of authority. It's about all things that we're striving for. And so what I see this representing is us taking the striving out of our career. It's like, where am I striving? Ugh, that feels like it's killing me. And it's like, okay, we need to stop this a little bit. Let's make life a little bit more fun. And so we're noticing what's feeling really off, what's feeling really restrictive, what's feeling like we're having to try too hard. And we're saying, enough. It's okay. We've come slightly off our center, but I don't want to strive anymore. I just want to be. So yeah, the third week, as I see it, is one that is absolutely full of beautiful potential. Just before I go forwards, I would also, sorry about the sound of my husband sneezing in the back. It's funny. Now, just a quick question I want to put out there. Have you ever noticed that people from different nationalities have a different way of sneezing? So Brits, we say achoo. When I lived in France, people said achum. Always their sneezes were chum, with an M on the end. My husband, his mum is Chinese. And when he sneezes, it's like he's been stabbed. It's like, ah! Is that how people sneeze in Singapore? That's what I want to know. Bonkers. Don't know if you could hear it. And Carl, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. No, I'm really sorry. Actually, I'm not. It's just what amuses me. Right. Okay. Last couple of days in week 3, from the 19th to 21st, there is also this... we're just really noticing that energy of the sun in a trine to the North Node. It feels like we are really back on our flow and back on our path. And I see that as being a really good time to write proper goals. Don't just let it be something that comes by chance. I'm not saying you have to strive to have your goals met. Not saying that at all. In fact, as I'm seeing it, it's like as you're being yourself, your goals will naturally come alive, but at least know which way you're going. So put in a compass point, put in a little note of, I kind of fancy going in this direction, and then just see what happens. Okay. Just at least plan for the idea of what you want and feel it at some level, feel it as a possibility. And, let's see where that takes us. So week 4 then, week 5, what am I on about? So week 4, Mercury and Mars are starting to change now. So as we hit into week 4, we've got a lot more energy shifts going on. Venus is now in a square to Jupiter. We might be going a little bit overboard with our emotions and our connections, as we've been reconnecting and refeeling things. We may well go a little bit too far. We might connect with somebody from the past that it feels a little bit like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have gone there. Just watch out for that. One other energy that is really relevant and kind of emphasized in this week ahead is this complete opposition between Mars and Neptune. It's a difficult one. Because Neptune is showing us where we are dreamy and unspecified, and then there's an aspect of us, Mars, which is like looking for that bullseye and is like pulling out an arrow. So it's like you really want to be aiming for something, but there's also this very strong desire to absolutely drift, and the two of them together can be very in their oppositions. They're pulling at each other's energies, and so it can sometimes bring up this feeling of despondency or paralysis of the things that you're wanting to manifest and work on. If you are really feeling this sense of paralysis, and that's coming on for people, and I'm a bit hesitant as I say it, if you're somebody with a very strong mutable chart, i.e. with signs in the sign of stuff in the sign of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces in particular at the end, dare I say, my Sun and Mercury are at 27 and 28 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius, totally fitting into this pattern. It's likely to be working with your angles and Sun and Moon at those degrees. But it's that feeling of, oh God, where did my energy go? Oh God, where did my drive go? What I would say, it's going to pass. So if you're not feeling that exact moment, the impetus to move forwards, you're feeling a bit of paralysis, what I would say is just relax, take your foot off the brake, take your foot off the gas, and just say, you know what, until I am moved to move again, until I've got the inspiration and the sign or the clue that things are starting to move forwards again, I'm just going to relax. I'm just going to enjoy myself, because you could really cause yourself some damage in trying to push when actually life is saying it's time not to know. It's time to be in the mystery, and it won't last forever. It will change. The 23rd, then we've got the sun moving into the sign of Virgo. And then later on that day, the Virgo Mercury goes retrograde, and he's moving back from 21 degrees all the way back to 8 degrees in the sign of Virgo. It's going to take him until the 15th of September. So as we go into September, we've got not just Venus retrograde until the 3rd, but we've also got Mercury retrograde until the 15th. So that's an interesting time. I probably wouldn't plan to do anything with too much movement or a need for things to be resolved before the 15th of September. Like if you're really wanting to get something signed off and sorted out in terms of September, I would really hold back and plan that for the latter part. Just a little hint or a tip there. On the 25th, then we've got Mars. Whereas Mars and Pluto making a beautiful sextile trine. So they are being very, very powerful together. It feels like we are starting to move forwards again. And then everything is kind of just working out. We've got the Sun and Saturn in opposition towards the 27th. And at that time, on the 27th, we've also got Mars going into the sign of Libra. Mars isn't very happy in the sign of Libra. And the Sun in its new degrees of Virgo in opposition to Saturn is a time, I think, when we are trying to be grown up and not knowing whether we're being grown up in a rational, sort of formal, logistical sense, or if we're being grown up in saying, actually, this is my space. This is who I am, and this is what I'm about. It's almost like there's a battle of the external visions of who we are. And with Mars going into Libra, which isn't very dynamic, it feels almost like we're at a bit of a standstill leading up to the last event, which is, ta-da, the final full moon, also known as a blue moon because it's the second full moon in a month. Now, if you remember, I said at the start that the moon and Saturn are the first full moon, which happens on the 1st of August. The first full moon was like the moon was here and the sun was here. In the space of a month, the sun has moved here, and then the moon has gone all the way around and has moved even further along. And now it's in this conjunction with Saturn. If you're interested in transactional analysis, like the idea that we've got a childlike side, an adult side, and a sort of parental side, these you could also see it as your rational, your irrational, and then the governing force. It could be your masculine, your feminine, and then the force of authority or the external authority. These three planets work together quite well. And it's always fascinating to see how they sit in people's charts. You can see if somebody is really following their inner heart, their inner child, whether they're just quite assertive and quite straightforward. That's more in the sun. Or if they're really about rules, regulations, and creating boundaries and saying, this is how it needs to be. And, sort of very much in a coercive, but also organizing way. So at the time of this full moon, it's interesting. We've got the childlike emblem and our sort of instinctive side, and also the organizing principle. You must do as I say, both coming together at the same time. What I would say is week 4 is about changing the pace. Mercury's changed signs. Mercury's gone retrograde. So things aren't as clear suddenly. Mars has changed signs, and we're not feeling as determined or as yangy as usual. And then our inner child is almost stunted by Saturn's legislations. And then our certainty to be quite legislative and strong and parental is also weakened by our insecurities. These two together are very difficult to manage. And it's all been emphasized. Really, where the power is at the time of the blue moon, the second full moon of August, our power is in stepping outside of us and stepping outside of our paradigm, stepping outside of what's been prescribed for us, stepping outside of the expectations that have come from your inner child, your whining inner child, your inspired but hidden inner child, all those parts of you that haven't been fully integrated. And also stepping outside of the expectations of our whining governments, our critical governments, our enforcing and punishing governments, and also stepping outside of those organizations that are saying, I'm doing this for you, I'm caring for you, but you have to just fit in, okay? Like stepping outside. So I really think the big news for the second full moon is step outside the paradigm. Absolutely. Stay out of all of the games. It's a game-free zone. Just step outside. There's a changing pace. It's working fast. Stay outside. If you can do a third-party perspective, if you can fly up and look down on your life, if you've used Tad James's timeline therapy, that's really useful. There are lots of different modalities out there, healing modalities and perceptual modalities that help you to view your situation from a completely different perspective. And that is what I would recommend. It's much safer, it's much more comfortable to kind of take yourself out of the paradigms, shake off those stories. So there you go. They're my thoughts for, they are my thoughts for the month ahead. So week 1, 2, 3, and 4, with the 2 full moons at either side of the month, and then the new moon in the middle. So let's pause for a moment and now consider the actual astrology and what we're being called to do as people in this month ahead.